welcome back to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. I am Aaron, and with me, as always, is Dave and Fredo. How you doing, guys?
Hello.
Hi, we're doing great.
I was actually practicing your guys' last names the other day. Quite literally, I was vacuuming and I was saying Alfredo Narvez, David
Yeah, that was good.
Glado.
It's pretty
Glado.
good.
Glado, like shadow, Glado.
Yeah,
so
Glado.
I was actually practicing because I don't want to be that jerk friend that, hey Dan, how's it going? It's Dave. Whatever, Dan. So but anyway. Okay, so Super Bowl predictions, Bucks or Chiefs, or you really don't give a hoot. Quite honestly, I'm gonna say I hope the Chiefs make Tom Brady cry bigger in life.
Yeah, I'm going
That's just
with
me
the
being
chefs.
petty. So
Yeah, I'm going with the chefs for the petty. But really, honestly, it's not like if the Bucks somehow keep the Tampa Bay streak alive going for another title, I won't be mad. I'm like, whatever.
So
Yeah, I don't even care.
okay, so Dave doesn't even care. But okay, so now the big news was, holy crudola. So Brittany Breeze, Drew Brees' wife, posts on Instagram. Not only did our quarterback have 11 broken ribs at one point and a punctured lung, but apparently he played a good chunk of the season with a torn rotator cuff and with a torn fascia. Now, as somebody who's had plantar fasciitis before and somebody who's had a torn rotator cuff, how in the hell did he play even remotely as good as he did? And why did we think it was a good idea to put him in when he's like that broken? But oh my good Lord, I mean, my hat's off to the dude. He must be tough.
I think part of it is there was almost a concerted effort that this was going to be this is going to end up being his final year before he retires, and he wanted no chance that he could not that he couldn't go out playing out on the field. And as long as he was upright and mobile and could throw the ball, okay, let's get him out there. And questions have to be asked about whether this question should have been the better part of valor, but that's all hindsight now.
And then Michael Thomas was playing on an ankle that's going to require surgery. It's just like, wow. I mean, we're a tough team.
I have all the respect in the world for NFL players, and I just feel like whenever there's a labor dispute and somebody sides with the owners, I'm like, you're mental, because those people are out there putting their bodies on the line every week.
This whole thing made me realize that, and I put this on Twitter. I said, anytime before you jump in on like laying into Mike Thomas for having a bad game, this last game, there's always another side of the story. There's always another side of the story when you find out that he's, like you said, he's playing on one leg, and because he wanted to give Drew the best opportunity to make it to a Super Bowl, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'll just sit here,
Yeah, it's understandable, and I think that's part of the difficult part that most of us don't see. I mean, look, most players' careers don't go as long as Drew's does. Most of them are out within 3 to 5 years. So, to Dave's point about labor disputes, I'm always like, look, they're going to have to live with the long term consequences of what they put their bodies through for the rest of their lives. I mean, Drew has made a truckload of money. He has a beautiful family. He's walking right into NBC studios, so he's going to be fine. But most NFL players don't get that opportunity, or half the number of opportunities that Drew gets. And so whenever somebody goes, well, they're making too much money, I'm like, yeah, but they're going to be spending a ton of it just staying healthy in their 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yeah.
While you're complaining about your one injury that you did to yourself, like me, they're going to be complaining about their 20th, that they're still living with.
Well, anyway, so hats off to a tough team, but go Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah, go Chefs.
But it'll probably be a passive watch here. So, but that you're not here to listen about us talk football, but we always talk a little bit about football. And then of course we're getting close to baseball. and so Fredo will have to ask him for a Dodgers update all the time.
Yeah.
Dave, do you follow any professional baseball teams like religiously?
No, not religiously. I mean, I'm happy for the Royals when they do well because I'm from the Kansas City area, so I really enjoy watching them do well. But and we're Buster Posey fans in our household because he was a Florida State alum. So
Yeah, I haven't really. I'm one of those. It drives me batty to watch baseball on TV, but I love to go see baseball in the park.
Hmm.
It's just a
I,
different. It's just an aesthetic that it's just different.
it's
Um,
so different.
I
It's
I
so
feel
much
like
better.
I feel like when you're watching baseball on TV, and with all due respect to all baseball fans out there, don't at me on Twitter, but I'm just saying, as a passive fan, it's like you turn on TV and then you might change the channel for like 2 hours and come back, and it looks like you haven't even nothing's changed. You know what I mean?
mm,
It's but so if you watch baseball, you gotta be in for the long haul. I have
yeah.
nothing against baseball. It's you know, but
No, I'll agree with you. I mean, it's one sport where, unlike say something like football, you gotta have a rooting interest. It makes all the difference. If you're watching on TV,
I
if you're
just
watching live, and I've maintained this for the longest time, it's I am grateful that New Orleans doesn't have an MLB team because I would waste all my time at afternoon baseball games.
I was just
There is nothing better than afternoon
I
baseball.
was just thinking this would be a great podcast. Aaron's ignorant views on sports. It's like now Aaron's going to talk about soccer and and offend half the
That's my
people listening.
wheelhouse. Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So tonight our topic of this evening, we are going to share. We say our
Speaking of
top,
sports,
yeah, but I think it's our.
Sports.
I think it's better to say our favorite lightsaber action scenes and our least favorite
As
lightsaber
opposed to
action scenes.
duels.
This could end up being very, very controversial, and some of us might make some people very, very angry. But then it wouldn't be an interesting podcast if we didn't do that. But first, by gosh, we've got to do some trivia, get our brains wrapped around Star Wars. Now we've talked about so much sports. And so here we go. As always, let's see here. I'll start with Dave. Who confronts Yoda saying, "You have interfered with our affairs for the last time"? Who confronts
oh wow,
Yoda saying, "You have interfered with our affairs for the last time"?
I'm pretty sure that's Count Dooku.
We would have accepted Darth Tyrannus as well. Yes. So and
Lord Tyrannus.
and this was in their lightsaber duel that one of us
Hmm.
may bring up. Who knows? But
It might come up.
so all right, Fredo.
Hmm.
Who does Han refer to as Greedo's boss? Come on. Just because it's the
Well,
first one I look at, and it's like are you smarter than a fifth grader Star Wars edition?
yeah.
Um,
I'm pretty sure he meant Jabba. We didn't know it was Jabba the Hutt, but it was Jabba.
okay, it's a good thing you said Jabba the Hutt because I was just about ready not to give it to you because it might be Jabba the something else.
Yeah.
Um, by the
Jabba
way,
Skywalker.
um, so I heard a. No, we won't even talk about that. It was a rumor that made me kind of made me upset a little bit. Well, I will say it. There was a rumor that that Kira and Han were going to be showing up in the Mandalorian, or I was wondering maybe the Book of Boba Fett. But it's like again, unless they're going to put Harrison Ford as Han, then don't even bother. Um, all right, so
How? How?
what do you mean how?
I
I
mean,
mean
I could.
they're both. I mean they're both alive and kicking. Kira and
Yeah.
Han.
Yeah, but Han and Leia were a definitive item at that point.
Oh, I
Right.
mean, but
I
I'm
mean,
not saying they're like going to the soda shop together. I'm just saying they said those two characters would be in there. So
I could see Kira from the standpoint of the last time we saw her, she was still very much involved in the underworld of Star Wars. So whereas Han, I don't know. I mean, unless Boba Fett's out hunting for him to get vengeance on his backpack hit,
That's why I think the Book of Boba Fett would have been a lot more interesting if it was placed like pre um, episode 4, because then you could have all of that crime syndicate, Crimson Dawn crossover stuff. But anyway, okay, well, that's not what this episode's about.
They could throw some of that in there. They could have it flash forward and backward, and do the flashback thing. But I gotta say, like that rumor sounds like a wires crossed thing to me. Like maybe they were thinking about the Obi-Wan series
could be.
or the Cassian series because they're set in different times. I don't know. Just saying.
All right, well, here's my question. Sorry, we digress. Who orders a clone trooper to get a transport and troops and hurry to Count Dooku's hangar? Who orders a clone trooper to get a transport and troops and hurry to Count Dooku's hangar? I am going to say that is Padme. It is. It's Padme Amidala. Yes. Ding, 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 ding. I almost thought it was going to be Yoda for a second, but then nope. It's after Padme flew out of the transport and probably should have died in her fall. But hey.
Hey, sand is soft. That's what everybody says.
No, it's coarse and it gets everywhere.
It's irritating.
It's irritating.
But it's also a nice, comfortable thing to fall on, apparently, from a moving vehicle.
Well, all right. Well, hope you guys were as successful at trivia as we were, and you got an as easy question as Fredo. So let's toss it to Fredo for some news. A lot of big stuff coming out. And by the way, did you put? Yeah, okay, you did put my one on there. All right, cool.
Of course, yeah. Of course. So we'll start at the top, just kind of mentioning. You shared this actually with us earlier today. Mandalorian was named one of the top 10 television programs of 2020 by the American Film Institute. Though I didn't see the list of which other shows were in there, but it's good to know that, surprisingly enough, they're recognizing it as a TV show, not a streaming show, not a platform. It's lumped in with the others.
By the way, I'm sorry, I've got to tell you this because last week I mentioned that my sister was watching, The Mandalorian, and
right.
I think I told you she was getting closer, So here's more text messages from my sister. This was on Sunday, I believe. Let's see here. Oh, Saturday. Okay. So Saturday. The Empire got Grogu, and with emoji with the swearing, thing over his mouth. And I said, yeah, but Boba Fett womp. McClunky. Sorry, you're going to have to McClunky a lot of this. And she said, yeah, he did. This is my older sister. She said, Mando does love the kid. He took his helmet off. And I just responded back with a smiley face. And I'm turning to my wife going, we're getting closer. And then we get the next one I get from her. The women Mandalorians kicked McClunky too. And then the next one, a few minutes later, that was an awesome ending. I didn't expect Luke and R2. Is there going to be a season 3, that group trying to save the galaxy from the Empire? I said, well, there's going to be a season 3. Did you watch the post-credit scene? She said, just now. Who's the fat guy? And I said, it's Bib Fortuna. He was Jabba's assistant in Jedi. Cool. She said, December? I said, yeah, you got to wait a bit. But anyway, it was just funny. And then we talked on the phone, and she was like, it was interesting. She was not bothered. She was actually quite amazed by the Luke Skywalker, and she said how they made him look his younger self and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, I always find it interesting that, our perceptions, the uber nerds versus the passive, the not, insane Star Wars fan. My sister's a Star Wars fan. She likes it. Wasn't bothered by any of that. So it's just kind of interesting in perspective. I'm sorry I took off, but I just love those text messages. I was like, okay, we're getting closer.
No. So yeah. No, you get them close to the moment. And it actually gave me a chance to find. So AFI's top 10 TV shows of the year, including The Mandalorian, were Better Call Saul, Bridgerton, The Crown, The Good Lord Bird, Lovecraft Country, Mrs. America, The Queen's Gambit, Ted Lasso, and Unorthodox. So, it's a good feather in their cap. Shows that they're doing right. I mean, We know that it's popular with the audience, and we know that it's popular with the critics.
Can
And
I
speaking of it,
recommend Ted Lasso to everybody? If you guys
please
haven't,
do.
yes, Aaron,
I
I
haven't
don't
watched
know
it.
if you're familiar with Ted Lasso at all.
No,
No,
I have
man,
homework apparently now, guys.
Yeah.
it's really good. It's only available on Apple, so you have to figure out a buddy who has Apple, or figure out a way to get a free trial.
Yeah.
I've
You
got
can.
Apple TV. Yeah, so we're good.
Yeah. You can get Apple. Yeah, free 7-day trial, and season one's already in there.
It came with
Yeah.
my
It's.
Yeah.
it came with my phone,
Mhm.
my cell plan. So
Well,
yeah,
then you
hooray.
have no reason not to watch it. It's awesome.
So I don't want to spoil it for you at all, but you basically go into this show thinking, "Wow, these people are all caricatures," and then they all end up surprising you.
So,
And it's a really heartwarming show too, which during the pandemic is like super important, I think, for everybody.
so it's funny because the show originally kicks off. It's based on when NBC bought the rights to the English Premier League, their soccer league. They made these commercials starring Ted Lasso, American football coach, coming over to be a coach for a soccer team, a Premier League team, and of course the clash of cultures in these commercials. And somehow, some way, Jason Sudeikis, who's Ted Lasso, convinced Apple to make the show. And if you're coming at it from the perspective of the TV ads, you're surprised at how differently it turns. But it's awesome. It's really, really heartwarming, really funny. You're surprised by the characters, but it, for 10 episodes, 30 minutes each. You just enjoy yourself. There's no stress with it. It's just fun.
By the way, and speaking of homework, you guys have ruined me. Um, Endgame was on TNT, I think, the other day, and watching that, and Brittany and I were watching. It was at the final battle, and I said I don't think that there is a better action movie ending than that battle scene in Endgame.
They drive
That
everything
was just
towards it.
so well done from beginning to end, as far as tracking where the battle was going, but and the emotional impact to it. I mean, I think I said to Scott Colesby, I said, I understand that's what Star Wars was going for with the Rise of Skywalker, but man, did they miss? Because this was, then you realize this is how many movies building up to that point, So anyway, this is not. You guys have ruined me. That is, I'm just gonna say.
Well, speaking of Marvel, right quick, I'll go move to the next
I'm
bit
the
of
king
news
of
just because
transitions. There we go.
segue. Just to mention, so Kevin Feige was doing interviews regarding WandaVision, their new Marvel Disney Plus TV show. And one of the guys over at Collider asked him about the rumors that he was going to be producing a Disney Star Wars movie. So they asked him point blank whether he was involved in Star Wars besides the movie he's going to. No, here's the way the guy says it. In a bid to get to the bottom of all the rumors, when I spoke to him yesterday, I asked him point blank if he was involved in Star Wars besides the movie he is producing. He said not at all. Now, what you need to know is that he normally apparently doesn't lie. He's normally, if he doesn't want to answer a question,
So
he'll tell you he can't answer.
the question was besides the one he's producing.
Right. Besides
Right.
the one he's making,
Okay,
are you
so
involved?
that is confirmed then by okay.
Yeah. So he's not looking because there's some expectation from certain sections of the fandom that he's gonna come in and take over for Kathleen Kennedy, gonna start running over Lucasfilm, and the dude's already lined up phase 5 of the MCU, so he's not going anywhere from where he's at.
However, kids, what do we say about when somebody denies something in a Star Wars interview?
Believe nothing.
Don't put stock into it. But anyway, okay.
I know, but it's interesting that he felt compelled to at least say that. But no. Speaking of people in interviews, Pedro Pascal was being interviewed. Uh, this has come from NME anyway. Was being having doing an interview with IndieWire. They're talking to him about Wonder Woman 1984 and Mandalorian success, with season two. So they asked them about potential crossovers between the new upcoming Disney Plus Star Wars shows. So, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic, and so he says, I am told what's happening and what the plan is, but I cannot share it. They are in the expansion of this world, so they're working on making it bigger, where there are so many unexpected surprises and timelines that are going to be dealt with. He does add, if the character, if the Din were to cross over into these worlds, it will be utilized in a way that isn't meant to be expected. I wouldn't want to spoil the surprise of whether or not characters from our show or this show we already know are going to cross over into something new.
See, the article I saw said timelines, and that threw me off for a second. I was like,
Yeah,
whoa, 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 wait a minute. Because, when I hear timelines, I'm thinking, is it sequel, prequel, original, it's like, are we going to do Star Wars time? Are we going to be doing a world between worlds, type of thing? But
right,
that's not
right.
what he's
Time
talking
jumps
about.
or
He's talking about, Mrs. Garrett in, Facts of Life and Different Strokes. So, it's same
kind of like
timeline, just different shows. Sure.
shows, right? Different perspective of the shows. And well, I mean, there's already a predecessor for that. I know this happens in other TV shows that are sharing a universe. So, speaking of sharing universes, there were Collider was also interviewing Jason Isaacs regarding, they started talking about seeing Bo-Katan, so seeing Katie Sackhoff bring that character to life in The Mandalorian, and they started asking him about it, and he says, "I'm open to anything. It's always about the script. I don't want to just turn up so I can take some photographs, go to conventions. I like to play the part." So the Inquisitor was a great part when I played it, and if the Inquisitor was a great part again, I'd be up for it. I'm not sure I've got the patience of Doug Jones, who's the guy who made The Shape of Water, the fishman in The Shape of Water, and is one of the best known physical creature actors. He says, I don't know how many hours I like to spend in prosthetics. But yeah, Katie had a very good time. I know Katie, and I'll say I've loved being part of the Star Wars world. They've invited me in, though, although I've only ever been an animated character before.
So,
So,
okay, so here's the thing that kind of drives me bonkers, and it goes back to people's wanting Ashley Eckstein to be Ahsoka in The
Ahsoka.
Mandalorian, and nothing against Ashley Eckstein, but it's like just because like we get hung up on the voice, and can you but the Bo-Katan thing was totally different because Bo-Katan was voiced by Katie Sackhoff and was modeled after Katie Sackhoff. I mean, so
Right.
um, I mean, you can put me in all the prosthetics you want and put me in all the costumes you want, but is it going to is it going to be the character? Is it just the voice we're looking for? Because if
Well,
it's
no,
just the voice we're looking for, then nobody other than James Earl Jones from 1977 through
seven.
1983 should be voicing Darth Vader. You know what I mean?
No,
It's if that's
no,
what we're
I
looking
get
for.
you, and I think it depends on the character. Like I could see, I don't know if you remember, Jason Essex is best known to most people as Lucius Malfoy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
so the Draco's dad. So you can totally see him fitting in the outfit of the Grand Inquisitor. It's just a question of getting the face to look right. Now, how willing is he to do that much? To me, the bigger question is, we last saw him fall into his quote unquote death, as I make air quotes in an audio podcast, uh, at the end of Rebel season one. So where's he been all this time if he wasn't dead?
Oh,
So
he was dead. I'm thinking about a prequel. I'm thinking about a buddy cop, like buddy road
well he
movie,
could
him and Vader
well that's the
hunting
thing.
Jedi.
That's the thing. He could be in the Obi-Wan series easily.
Yeah, yeah, very
Yeah.
much so. And that's
How
exactly what you would expect him to be in.
However, I want to get back to the point that I guess this is Aaron, speaking. I mean, I have an easier time getting past the voice than I do, you
Mm-hmm.
know, the look. You know what I mean? It's because it's like if you read it's when you read a book, it's like
You picture
you
it
get
right
this,
away.
picture, and if that picture does not line up, I mean, people just go nuts.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and the voice, I mean, there are so many talented voice actors. I mean, how many times have we heard, in Rebels and in, heck, probably even a little bit in The Rise of Skywalker, some voice actors for, Carrie Fisher. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like you can, and like I said again, Darth Vader. So I can get past the voice. I'm getting a little, little irritated that it's like, because Jason Isaacs, yeah, just because
Yes.
Jason Isaacs voiced the Grand Inquisitor doesn't mean he's the only person on planet Earth to play the Grand Inquisitor. But some fans feel that way, and
Well,
it's, yeah.
and look at it this way. Take a role that's famous for the voice, like the Joker, like Mark Hamill's take on the Joker, which is all voice acted and animated.
I'm sorry, Caesar Romero.
Well, my point is going to be when it came time to cast a real life Joker for The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan didn't go looking for Mark Hamill. He went to Heath Ledger, and he even said, "I don't want you to do what the other guys have done. I want you to come up with your own thing." And when Mark Hamill saw Heath Ledger, he's like, "He's perfect for this. He's doing it beautifully," because it was a different take on the character. And sometimes I think because we all Star Wars exists within its timeline, its own universe, we like to think the characters may not change, may not cannot be any different. But that's not the case. I mean, you can have an actor or a character be different from one project to another.
Well, and especially something like, and I don't want to belabor all this, but especially something
Mm-hmm.
like a character like the Grand Inquisitor, for example, which
Mm-hmm.
was in a handful of episodes in Rebels. It's not like something that's been fleshed out for, decades, you know. So, you know, yeah. But I just get back to the point that I wish we could get past the, and of course, after I just said, no, don't put anybody other than Harrison Ford, in, but that gets back into the look. That would just be totally disjunct to see Alden Ehrenreich after Return of the Jedi. That would just be off putting, you know? So anyway.
But
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting has been that they have not had to deal with recasting in live action for the most part. It's like somebody, like Carrie Fisher's death is like the biggest hurdle I can think of that they had to try to overcome. Um, but like if you think back, like are there any other examples that you can even think of in Star Wars? Um, it's
Just
it's
I was gonna say
it's
just Alden and Han, and that's because
yeah.
you literally could not bring young Harrison Ford back. You don't have a time machine.
Well, and I get to I mean, I come back to it that I hope that Lucasfilm, I mean, the Carrie Fisher thing, it was an odd circumstance, hopefully, and um, God forbid we have to deal with anything like that again. But if they're like going, we're going to make a new movie, or we want to tell this story. Let's say we want to tell this story about Luke Skywalker and Grogu. We want to tell this story. Then again, I've said it on the podcast before. Then put that in a book or in a comic book. Something where you can get away, or an animated series where you can get
Yeah,
away with that, because you could get Mark Hamill then to voice, an animated series, and you could, increase the pitch a little bit to sound a little bit younger, whatnot. But, but just to go with a total new dude to play Luke Skywalker, I just think, no, I think you've got other venues to tell the stories. It doesn't have to be live action.
Fredo too. There are other examples of going backwards like that. Obviously, with the prequels, I mean, you have Anakin, you have Obi-Wan,
right.
but like going forwards, in a continuous timeline, they haven't had to deal with
Well, and
that.
that,
And
I'm sorry, you brought up the Obi-Wan thing. That would have been an interesting, kind of conundrum, that if, let's say all of a sudden, if you had an Obi-Wan Force ghost in The Rise of Skywalker,
Mm-hmm.
and you
or
They,
made,
in
they,
uh, or in the Mandalorian.
or put, let's say you have Obi-Wan show up on Ahch-To instead of Yoda. You can't have Alec Guinness. Luke never knew the
Ewan
Ewan
McGregor.
McGregor version of that. You know, it's
Mm.
so what version of the ghost is, you know what I mean? It's like you're opening
Yeah.
yourself into this nerddom rabbit hole that is it really worth, you know,
The
what you're getting
stress.
yourself into. So it's like, oh hell, let's just put Yoda in there. It's better. You know?
Well, and that's just it. And that goes back to you're trying to be respectful to the fan base, but at the same time, you have to create your project. You have to be willing to go, this is what we want to do. And if that means we got to recast a character that fans love and we get some flack for it, so be it. Because we feel that the story we want to tell is more important than somebody getting butthurt about this. Just the way it is. Uh, really, the only, by the way, Dave, the only one I thought of immediately was Chewie, and that's because Juna Suotamo took over for Peter Mayhew. But besides that, and he's in full costume, so you don't tell the difference.
You know, I'm gonna say though, Fredo, as from speaking from a band point of view, the Eagles, the last thing they ever wanted to sing was "Take It to the Limit" and "Peaceful, Easy Feeling" when they were in their 60s. But by God, they did it, because people wanted to hear it. So it's like you can't. There is a certain part of it when you have that fan base and that audience, you can't just get up in front of them and say, well, you can, but you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot to say, no, I don't care what you guys think. We're never going to sing "Take It to the Limit" ever again, and to hell with you. And I mean,
Well,
it's so.
see, and to me, the point isn't that you're saying to hell with them; is that you're willing to say, look, we want to make a solo single movie. We literally cannot have Harrison Ford portray him because the story that we're making precludes him.
But see that you're
He's
talking about a
old.
different situation where you're going
No, no,
backwards. You're going backwards, so you're not going to tick
okay.
off people because then it's like, yeah, I can buy somebody else being Han Solo, but for 30 some years, Harrison Ford has been Han Solo, and then if you're going to say at year 31, it's going to be somebody else, then it's like you're like I said, you're open. That's
So
when I
let
said
me ask you.
I think you've got other avenues to tell a story, you know.
So let me
So
ask them then: would you be upset if Alden shows up in the Book of Boba Fett?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because that's Harrison Ford from A New Hope through Rise
Rise of
of
Skywalker.
Skywalker. It's Harrison Ford land. Alden Ehrenreich is before then. I have no problem with that, and it because it's that again it's that paradigm of the person that I'm looking. It would take me totally out of the story because unless again I don't have a problem with the story being told. If it's in a book, then I can picture in my own
Mhm.
brain that's Harrison Ford looking at me. Boy, that sounded dirty, but but you know what I mean. And I'm sure that they have to have these conversations. It's like
Well, you have to, and that's why secondary characters get bigged
people
up. You have to because you can't bring everybody back the way they were.
people lost their didn't really lose their minds, but there was a little bit of controversy at the Force Awakens with hearing both Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor in the Force back scene. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, I thought it was kind of odd, um, but I guess whatever. I kind of got
No,
away from that, but it was just yeah, I don't know. Sorry, didn't mean to
no,
belabor this, but it's
no, because it gets to a point. As fans, we all, or a good section of the fan base, grew up with Clone Wars and Rebels, and they've seen these characters animated, and now they're coming into live action, and a lot of them are going to have to come to grips with the fact that some are going to make the transition seamlessly, like say Bo-Katan did with Katie Sackhoff. Some there's going to be some adjustment, like Ahsoka, where instead of Ashley Eckstein, who was the voice, it's Rosario Dawson because she looks and sounds and feels better for this character right now in live action. And some may sound completely different. I mean, again, we know that Thrawn's coming somewhere down the pipeline. What if it looks and sounds? What if it sounds completely different to what everybody's accustomed to from Rebels and from the books? Again, it's whatever the story that the creators want to tell. That's what they got to serve. But there's a lot of baggage that comes with each and every one of the characters that we like.
controversy. And Dave's sitting there staring at us like, "Will you two shut up and move on with the?"
Get on with it!
Get on
Get
with it.
on with it!
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Okay, so I'll get on with it. Last bit of news, and this is actually happier news. If you are looking to send some mail, the post office will help you by selling you some pretty soon in spring 2021. We're gonna get Star Wars droids postage stamps. So it's 20 stamps that are gonna feature.
Not droids, the animated series from '84 or
No,
whatever. But
no,
yeah,
no, like character droid. Well, no, hold on. Before you boo, you're gonna get droids like IG-11, R2D2, K2SO, DO, L337, BB-8, C3PO, a 2-1B surgical droid, a Gronk droid. You even get a Gronk droid in this. And last but not least,
you said a Gronk droid.
yeah, totally. Yes, Rob Gronkowski as a droid. Actually, he probably sounds like a Gronk droid.
It probably does.
And then last but not
Gronk.
least, Chopper. You're gonna get a Chopper postage stamp.
All right,
So,
which one of those stands out as the one of, oh crap, we need one more droid to finish the set? Which one?
the Gronk droid.
No, that's a fan favorite. I'm talking 2-1B. So let's take the medical droid from Empire Strikes Back that's on the screen for all of 2 seconds,
Yeah.
and then fixes Luke's hand at the end. It was like, shoot, we need another droid here.
I had that action figure.
I've got it in a case right over here, actually. Yeah.
So they're coming in. Apparently, they're gonna share some of the proceeds with Star Wars Horse of Change and a global K-12 nonprofit organization called For Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. So, expanding STEM teaching across the world. So come spring, go get your stamps.
My grandma always gave us like encouraged the stamp collection. So we had all these, So I have to dig those out and go get my Star Wars stamps because I can't remember the last time I mailed anything.
Well, get them now and save them for Christmas, and you can mail your Christmas cards with Star Wars stamps.
Why would I give people my Star Wars stamps?
I'm saying you can buy 2.
Oh, okay. See, that's how they get
one to mail, one to keep. And that's it for the news.
All right, hey, thanks, Fredo. And there'll be plenty of the Monty Python "Get On With It" in that spot there.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
So, like I said tonight, to continue the controversy, we are going to talk about our favorite,
our world famous,
our favorite lightsaber battles. Now we had a little bit of discussion about this. It's like, all right, so is it just live action or is it live action and animation? We decided anything's fair game. And then I opened my mouth today and said, well, wait a minute. Are we talking about lightsaber duel or is it just lightsaber action? Because, if we say duel, then I think you're missing out on some scenes. And Dave ended up just kind of saying, shut up and just pick whatever you want. No, he didn't say it like that. He said it very, very nicely. We're characterizing this as our favorite action scenes with lightsabers. So.
And least favorite.
And we also have the least favorite. Yes. Because like I said, if there was no controversy, it'd be a boring podcast. So let's see let's have Dave start us off. What we're going to do is we're going to do a round robin. Everybody give, one of your top, and we'll just go around. You don't have to give a long dissertation as to why, go for it. Dave, start us off.
All right. I'm going to start with a deep cut, from the Legends.
Nerd.
Oh. Yes. The Clone Wars micro series.
Ooh.
The debut of General Grievous and his battle against Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shakti, Isla Secura, and many others. I just loved this because it was just absurdly entertaining and kind of frightening because Grievous shows up on screen and just immediately starts overwhelming Jedi. And like the character design is really cool. He's got multiple lightsabers that he's wielding at once. Again, he's formidable. He dispatches some of these Jedi, and the only ones who survived made it out of there because of a clone intervention. And I think like this particular sequence, anyone who saw this held or continues to hold Grievous in a much greater esteem than anyone who just saw him in Revenge of the Sith. And for me, it's like had to be included. So
Cool. I haven't seen that micro series, and I was I want to after seeing a few clips because I doing a little bit of research to make sure I wasn't missing anything, and I did see that clip. And now I want to see that series. So because there was one, I don't know if I'm stealing anything, but is the battle between no, I won't even say it. Never mind. Fredo, what's your first favorite?
Well, actually, you probably were going to mention the one that I was going to go with, which is also from the micro series, and it's Anakin versus Asajj Ventress.
See, I'm glad I shut my dang mouth. Okay.
Because that, and here's what I like. I mean, first of all, if you haven't seen the micro series, if you're just coming from Dave Filoni's show, it can be quite jarring because 3 to 5 minute episodes. They're 20 minutes in total, particularly for that. I want to say that first season was only 3 minutes each, so it's only an hour in total. But the amount of storytelling that Genndy Tartakovsky condensed into that series, but particularly that duel, because the whole idea is Count Dooku and Lord Sidious hire Asajj to they tell her she's Sith, and they basically send her out to lure Anakin away to the Temple on Yavin 4 and basically beat. He says kill him, but that's not their plan. Their plan is to see how far they can push him towards the dark side, and just the amount of storytelling, the way that it goes from the jungle into the pyramid, on top of the pyramid, and yeah, it ends up with Anakin's rather close. He's always a bit close to the dark side, and it's just a really, really well done in terms of storytelling with action. It's very little dialogue, but it's with action. It's amazing.
Cool. Well, my first one, and again, I'm going in no particular order, so this is not like my. Who knows which one of these is my favorite. Actually, this one probably is one of my favorites, and it is the Rey and Kylo in The Force Awakens. And I mean, because it's bookended with probably two of my favorite moments in the Star Wars saga. One is the lightsaber flying into Rey's hand, which when I was watching Endgame and Thor's hammer went flying into, Captain America's hand, I was like, yeah, Star Wars did it first. But anyway, at least on film. But anyway, starting with that, ending with her just, whomping, almost taking off Kylo's head. But the battle is filled with so much emotion, probably more emotion than I'm more moved by that one. Well, I won't get into that. But there's just so much emotion. Love, especially the moment where Kylo's got her almost pinned, and then it's like, if you're watching her eyes, the red and the blue are in a cross pattern. She closes her eyes thinking about the Force, and when she opens her eyes, it's red on blue right on top of each other. And it really does show, Rey is operating in both the good and the bad side of the Force. She's using a lot of dark side Force, but it's just, I just love that battle. And it's choreographed, but it's not as choreographed as a lot of the lightsaber duels. It doesn't appear because it just looks raw. Like I'm just whomping you with a lightsaber. But so that was my first one. Dave?
My second choice is Ahsoka Tano versus Darth Maul in the Clone Wars.
This was in my honorable mentions. I really dug this one as well.
There's so many animated choices. There's Clone Wars and Rebels and everything. You could pick so many different ones. This one, the one I gravitate towards it. I love it because of the motion capture. it just made a tremendous difference for me here.
Yeah, because it
Um,
was Ray Park and stunt woman. Yeah, that they actually I mean, it wasn't like they weren't drawn. They those actors doing it.
yeah, they choreographed that whole thing, fought it out, and then they motion captured them and transferred it to animation. And I just it made such a huge difference because like most of the animated battles end up looking really stylized. They move super quick. You can barely follow what's going on. It's just, saber uh animated sabers swinging across the screen so fast you can't tell what happened. Here you can really see what's happening. The choreography is spot on. The banter is great. Um, and the other thing I like about this is that it's kind of sad and tragic for the participants because we all know how this story ends. I mean, at the end of the day, they feel like they're in a battle of grave consequence, but we know the two of them aren't going to factor into Anakin's corruption, which is what they think they can affect in some way. But we know that the die have already been cast. And so there's just like this sadness to it too. I love everything about this duel. So for me, it's second on my list.
Cool, Fredo.
So for me, I'm going to go with the second duel between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, the one in Return of the Jedi. It's surprising because at first the
Not
one
not in the Force cave, but on Bespin.
no on Death Star 2,
Oh, okay. So the third one.
Return of the Jedi. Yeah, because originally I wanted to go with the one on Bespin. Part of me had wanted to put that in there because it's just so iconic. But then the more I thought about it, the more I went back and assessed that it's just not only is the fight choreography so impactful and much more close at hand in the one in the Return of Jedi, but just the stakes just get amped up big time because the battle's happening outside, Emperor Palpatine's hanging them on. It's just there's so much going on. I think it my estimation on it has increased the more I've gone back and looked at it. So yeah, that for that
You
reason, it's
know,
got to be in my top three.
so it's choreographed, and all of these obviously are choreographed.
Right.
But here's the thing that makes this duel pretty good. The Jedi duel is that it looks like two people trained in fencing,
Mm-hmm.
having a street fight. So that you're going to have these fundamentals that you're using, but it's
They go
not
away.
it's not like Dancing with the Jedi or anything like that. You know what I mean? Which there are some lightsaber duels that we'll probably talk about later that seems like Dancing with the Jedi. Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and a one and a two and a spin and a hit and then you jump and it's
Right.
so. But this one, it does. It looks like it's choreographed, but it looks like again we're just relying on our fundamentals as swordsmen, and it's a street fight. So
And what's interesting is you get for the first time, I think, in the entire original trilogy, you get a sense that Darth Vader doesn't want to kill. This is the first time I think, whereas in the first duel, he was, I'm going to hurt you and embarrass you to you either quit and concede and turn to the dark side or die or I kill you. In this instance, there's a conflict. You can totally tell that there's a conflict within Vader in the way that he's dueling with Luke, and that there's a conflict in Luke because Luke doesn't want to. The Luke in Empire wants to kill Vader. The Luke in Jedi is looking to redeem him. So it creates a dynamic where neither guy really wants to be doing this, but they're doing it because they feel compelled.
and it's great use of music behind it too. So
Oh yeah, big time.
so mine also has great music behind it. My next one is the Darth Maul Qui-Gon Obi-Wan duel in Episode 1. Um, and again, they're having a Star Wars marathon on TNT this weekend, and so I was watching this on TNT. And the thing that struck me, there is not one word spoken in that entire duel. And I mean, and as much as Duel of the Fates, the music, sticks out like a sore, like it sticks out like a bigger thumb, not a sore thumb, but I mean, it's because it's good music, but it sticks out in the whole repertoire of Star Wars, but it's awesome for this duel. And like I said, not a word is spoken, and yeah, it's choreographed, but not it. Like I said, it's not as it's just well. And here's the thing, though, is that this was the lightsaber duel that we were all begging for as kids because you know Obi-Wan and Vader in A New Hope is like the two old guys in Family Guy having a fight, in Empire and Jedi. It's still and they're still all they're just all really kind of labored and slow. This one was when, especially when Obi-Wan and Darth Maul start going head to head. It's fast and it is you can just see how powerful they are. Yeah, it's entertaining from the start all the way to the end. So yeah, that's my next one.
That's my
It's,
choice for number one. I mean, it's my favorite still. And I just think, like, what you sort of pinpointed it, the fact that there's just really no dialogue other than Obi-Wan shouting out no.
Yeah.
they got nothing to say. It's on site. They're like gangs. They saw each other. It's on site.
Well, it's
The
one of those
bo-
things.
the-
It's what the Incredibles. It's what Syndrome said. It's like, oh, you got me monologuing. It's like I was actually thinking about that watching Endgame. It's like they got Thanos monologuing. Somebody should have taken him out at that point. But yeah, so here, yeah, there's no monologuing.
the body language tells the story.
Yeah.
It's like everything you want to know about all of these characters comes out in their physical movements. And I really like Filoni's take on this duel, which is that it has such larger stakes than people really give it credit for. Because Qui-Gon's death really sets Anakin on a path to darkness, and more than any other event maybe in that kid's life. And I love it. I love everything about it. A lot of people try to downgrade it because of the lack of dialogue or the lack of stakes or whatever. No, no, it all works.
Fredo, what's your final favorite?
Final favorite, man. I was kind of debating about putting this one on, but eventually I was like, no, you have to put it in, and that's Anakin versus Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith. And it's technically not the most proficient. That's the one in episode one. Episode one's the one where you go, these are guys who are committed to their cause at the peak of their powers. There's nothing, Obi-Wan, when he launches himself at Maul, is looking to kill Maul. I don't care what they say about peace, justice, we use this for the fence. The dude's going for a head. Whereas the one in Revenge of the Sith between Anakin and Obi-Wan, again, kind of like the duel in Jedi, there's almost this push-pull of, are we really going to do this? Anakin, respects and loves Obi-Wan, but he's given himself wholly to the dark side. And Obi-Wan is conflicted because that's his brother, that's the child he raised, and yet he knows all the evil that he's done. So they're almost, their minds are not lined up with what they want to do, but they almost feel compelled, like this is what we have to do. They're caught in by the trap that Sidious has laid out for them for the past decades. So I love the way that it flows from the landing platform through the control room, through the lava pits. Yes, it still sucks that it ends with the high ground. I wish, to this day, I wish there had been a better way to finish that out, but so be it. It is what it is. But I think it really, in so many ways, that was the duel that everybody had been waiting for, and it's great to finally get it.
So my final favorite is Yoda Dooku in episode 2. And I remember we saw a clip of this at Celebration 2 when we went to the session with Rick McCallum. And I was over the moon with it then. I was over the moon with it when it came out. And when I got my first big screen TV, the first thing that I played on that thing was the Yoda Dooku lightsaber duel. Um, and I know it catches some flack because it's like Kermit the Frog in Treasure Island jumping around, and stuff like that. But the thing that's so dang cool about it is how much the Force is at play within Yoda. And when you think about an Empire, when he says, my ally is the Force, you heard that line, and then you see that in Episode 2 in this duel, because here he comes hobbling in, and then all of a sudden it's the cane's down, and he uses the Force. He doesn't even reach down to it. He's so, I mean, he's so gangster. He doesn't even like reach down and grab his light. He uses the Force to get his lightsaber off of his belt buckle, and then he just goes nuts, and he's bouncing around and jumping around and holding his own, and he's talking some smack. And then I love it when it's all done, then he grabs his cane and hobbles off again. But he's also using the Force to keep the pillar from collapsing on Anakin and Obi-Wan. But it's like how you see how much the Force is at play during a lightsaber duel, and it's really the only time that you see that. So
That was a theater moment too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, and
Yes,
that's
it was.
you talk about, everybody the lightsaber duel that everybody's waiting for is Anakin and Obi-Wan. I mean, to see Yoda handle a lightsaber, that's what everybody was waiting for. I mean, and like I said, I still love the dang scene. So
I don't know if everybody was waiting for it. I know that everybody had questioned it, had thought of it, and figured, well, he's a Jedi, he should have a lightsaber. And then when you see it, I still remember seeing hearing the audience just lose their minds the moment he pulls his cloak back and there's the lightsaber, and he just with his hand just uses the Force, push it to this other hand, and
it was like
yeah,
it was like that bit was filmed by Quentin Tarantino. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like pulls his
Right.
robe back, and
His,
then
it,
um,
in many ways, that was an endgame moment, kind of like the moment in Endgame where everybody turns up. That was an endgame moment
yeah.
for that audience.
So so now we can go around the horn if you have one. I'm just going to throw out an honorable mention because I was struggling between Yoda Dooku and this other one, and that is Yoda and Obi-Wan breaking into the Jedi Temple. I love that scene because it shows who the two most powerful Jedi actually are. I mean, how many clones are there? And it's like they have not a problem whatsoever. You got chucking of lightsabers and yanking it out and slashing down another one. Yeah, that's an honorable mention. Love that scene. Any honorable mentions, Dave?
I got a half dozen. I'll let Fredo go first.
Actually, the one that I really struggled, and I kind of questioned whether or not I could even include it, but honorable mention I'll include it now. Scene 38 revisited. I know
I
everybody's
thought
seen
about
it.
that too. That would make me, if that I would be highly behind them doing something like that, doing a special edition
Mhm. A New
of
Hope.
A New Hope, and doing that. Maybe a little, not so much with the music.
Mhm. Yeah, with the Clone Wars music or the
Yeah,
prequel music. But I love the physicality of it. Again, yes, we know it's an old Ben versus Darth Vader, but there's moments in it where yes, they're using the Force, but later on when Vader gets wounded, it just starts punching and smacking and using the Force to throw Ben Kenobi out, and I'm like, if I had seen that as a 10-year-old, I think my brain would have melted.
but get back to what I was saying about Yoda. He comes
Mhm.
hobbling in. I mean, it's not, so we've put it into canon that you use the Force, and it's in video games too. You use Force
Mhm.
powers to make yourself a little bit more stronger in this battle or whatever. Obi-Wan could have done that. It would
Mhm.
not have. It would have been far fetched in 1977. It would not be far fetched now. So
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one. All right, Dave,
My
enlighten
huge
me.
list. Okay, Yoda versus Sidious throwing pods at each other. Love that. Love
Through
the
the whole
symbolism.
sedative.
Yeah, the symbolism of it and the actual execution is so great. Obi-Wan versus Jango Fett on the platform. so much fun watching a Jedi in his prime have so many problems with this bounty hunter because it's like, yeah, no, he's actually that good. Um, Obi-Wan versus Maul in the Clone Wars, or in Rebels. The end
I thought
of
about that
Maul.
one. I thought about putting that one on here as well.
I think it was the perfect moment for that story. I thought it was the perfect conclusion for Maul. I probably just wasn't quite actiony enough to make my list. Ahsoka versus Vader in Rebels.
Yes.
So much of that has so much emotional heft. But again, it was for me. It was kind of undone by the flashy nature of it. And then Luke versus Kylo Ren in Last Jedi, um, which I think a lot of people have mixed feelings on. But me personally, it's just that it was so gorgeous.
You
It
know,
was gorgeously shot, and it was perfectly revealed, and it was in character for both participants. It was just
yeah,
spot on.
I've said it before that scene. That's Luke being the only Jedi who is walking the walk, and
Mhm.
yeah, because he's using the Force for defense, not for
Yeah.
attack. Every Jedi, talks out of both ends of their mouths, and straight out of something else. Sometimes they don't practice what they preach, but Luke was at that point, so I thought it was spot on. Um,
Can I throw one more right quick before we
well,
move on to
Dave
the
gave
lower end?
10, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was just going to mention Ahsoka versus the Magistrate in The Mandalorian. Just
Mm.
because I love the way that it was shot. The choreography was simple, but I love the fact they were physical, that they were going at it. I love that, at the end, it's a minor move that wins it. So it's short, but again, it's not about length. It's about how you're telling the story you want to tell. And I really enjoyed it.
oh,
Get out of the
oh,
gutter,
I'm
Dan.
sorry.
Hey, I'll get us out of the gutter
There you
with
go.
one more honorable mention. Ben and Ray in
Mhm,
the throne room, in
mhm.
Snoke's throne
That
room.
Yeah.
that's what started off this whole thing, is that it can't be, if that's not a duel. It's can because I was considering that one. I love that battle, but it's not a lightsaber duel. Neither was Obi-Wan and Yoda in outside of the Jedi Temple. But yeah, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that was a lot of fun. I mean, and again, you're talking about the cinematography of it, just the way that the whole red and black background, and then with all the fire and the flames everywhere. It was really well done.
that was a holy crap moment in the theater too, where it's like, oh my god, we're doing this.
Hmm.
We're doing this. This is
Well,
amazing.
you remember like the month after Last Jedi came out, everybody kept cutting in like immigrant song or some whatever other
Yeah.
song they wanted to that first minute and a half of that battle. It was just
Yep.
fun. Like, be like, what are they putting now? Oh, they're putting Too Legit to Quit. Okay,
all right, so I'm gonna kick off the bottom three,
okay.
and Fredo, I'm gonna disagree with you, and I'm going to say Anakin Obi-Wan in Episode 3. And this is probably my least favorite lightsaber battle. I think it's a mess. It looks like a slap fight. It's I think because of it, I'm glad that I don't have any neurological disorders, because it would have driven me even more batty. It was I hated the floating around on the lava and swinging at each other on hanging on the pole. And yeah, the high ground thing didn't bother me as much. It was the crappy acting throughout the whole battle. It's just a mess. I don't like it. It's one of those things that if I could I would probably fast forward through it when I watch it, because I don't think it lives up to what it was built up to.
I
I
nearly
think
had a shocked gasp. I may have to insert shocked gasp
No, you have to.
at the fast forward remark.
You need to put up dun dun dun.
I don't like it. I mean, it, yeah. I mean, that type of battle between those two should have been more like Kylo Ren and Rey. That it should have been all emotion and like sucker punching and it just every stroke I'm trying to kill you from Anakin, not trying to one up Darth Maul on how fast we can move. That's what it was. It's like, let's see, this is going to be the fastest lightsaber duel and the longest lightsaber duel ever. It just, and it so it, that type of, the emotion that was in there, it needed to be more close quartered. It actually needed more dialogue because I mean, it needed to be a little bit more. I don't know. It was just
See,
it's
that tells you that you don't like it because on the one hand you're saying there's dialogue, but on the other hand saying you want more dialogue.
well, but the thing
So
was
it's
is that Darth Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan did not know each other. So it makes
well,
sense that
they not
there's
need.
no
They
dialogue.
don't need.
If I am fighting my best friend and brother, there's going to be a lot more of what in the heck are you, why are you doing this, this is not you, stop this, and like I'm gonna kill you, not waiting until the very end and it's like I hate you, it's like I don't know. I just think what they wanted to do was do something flashy and the fastest and biggest lightsaber duel ever, and it looked like a slap fight. So disagree with me, Twitter and Dave and Fredo, all you want, but I just think that lightsaber duel was a letdown for that movie.
And you can add him at Aaron_Swoboda.
Yeah, good luck spelling my last name. So yeah. So anyway, so that's I got the most controversial one out of the bag. And by the way, guys, I watching episode 3 again the other day again on TNT, and I'm just realizing how much it's getting more and more where I dislike that movie. It's just and I feel bad about that. I need to stop watching it so I don't start to be just more negative than I am right now. So I just need to stop talking about it so that I can get the energy level back up to where, yay, it's a Star Wars movie. But yeah,
Well, you know what? I'll start talking about it.
go for it.
So wait. Are we gonna watch a movie next week?
And we'll have a swear counter. We'll have a swear counter like when South Park said the S word. Like they're gonna say it 160 times. It's Aaron's gonna say, see how many times we get McClunky. So Dave, you're gonna start talking about it.
Well, the three of us, when we do the watch of that movie, the three of us are gonna have to come fully armed with like every talking point that we want to touch on, because I know it's gonna be Aaron ranting and Fredo and Dave defending. So, but that having been said, this particular fight made my bottom 3 too.
Yay! Vindication.
Well, this is a very divisive fight. I mean, it is for a lot of people. I know that when it first came out, there was a lot of debate on the internet about whether this was the best lightsaber duel ever, and then a lot of other people were like, "Huh? Not for me." And I'm more in the latter category. And I think this is my bottom 3. I guess I'm not going to say like, oh, they're terrible, they're beyond redemption. My bottom 3 are probably the most disappointing ones for me. And it's like maybe some of that comes from building up your expectations too much, which is what we always talk about on this show. But I think like this particular fight, they needed to get it right. We waited a generation for the fight, and it just didn't quite land for me as well as it could or should have.
See, kids, this is why Dave negotiates everything for us, because he's so much nicer about things.
We try, I try. But this fight, I think that if I had to boil it down to like where it went wrong, I think there was just too much speed, like you said. Like it seemed like they were trying to swing their lightsabers as fast as they could,
Like a slap
And I
fight.
think,
Yeah.
well, there was probably a lot of pressure on them to do that. We're gonna make this the fastest lightsaber fight ever, and so then they did that, and on film it doesn't work quite as well as the mall fight
Now
does.
think about this for a second. Okay, so we're talking about this. You and I are of the same mind here. Now imagine, and Dave Filoni does the exact opposite with Obi-Wan and Maul. I mean, they've been
Right.
building up Obi-Wan and Maul and this final confrontation for, seven, well, at that time, 6 seasons of the Clone Wars, and and Phantom Menace and everything, and then it's boom, boom, dead. And it's like that was a gutsy decision on Filoni's part to do that.
I agree, but I
So,
also feel like Filoni's not without fault with some of his fights
oh
with
sure.
where yeah, it's like hard to follow the action. Like that's my biggest critique with him. But um Aaron, where I'm with you on this particular fight, there probably could have been more dialogue, and you probably could have nailed that dialogue. Like tighten it up, rewrite it, get it right.
Well, it's like in Dukes of
Um,
Hazzard when Bo and Luke would have their fight. There, it wasn't just they just started punching each other. It was always they're talking about what they're mad at each other about.
yeah.
And
Well,
in this fight, we got the I'm on the side of democracy and I have an empire, and then we just fight, and then I have the high ground. I yield the floor. Go ahead, Dave.
I'll let Fredo
Jump
speak
in
his
on the
mind here.
defense.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, no, no. Actually, and it's understandable. And look, two things that we always have to that I even said when I sung its praises. One, this is the duel that everybody been waiting for a generation. Everybody knew even before Episode 3 shot a minute. Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fought on this volcanic planet, and that's where Vader got injured, and that's why he's in the suit. So for a generation, people have been building up the expectation to it. Obviously, as with everything, once you imagine in your head what's in your head, it's always going to be better than. That said, I think the difficulty with making and this is where issues with the prequels kind of come to the foreground, because by this point you should know kind of where Obi-Wan and Anakin stand. You should know that that's Darth Vader. I mean, you should things. You don't need. Maybe you do need more dialogue between brothers because they're brothers. But at this point, the fact that they're taking out their weapons and swinging at each other with intent to kill should really say it all. You don't need to hear Anakin, trying to say, "I'm gonna kill you.
Well,
I hate you. I'm gonna kill you." Like, dude, you're literally swinging the weapon that I know you've seen you use to murder a whole room full of
Well,
people 10 minutes prior to swing it at your best friend.
except for the fact that they did not do any. I still am not. Yeah, we're gonna have to do a Revenge of the Sith watch because I still think the way that they portrayed Anakin's fall to the dark side was clunky and just not. It wasn't good, and Obi-Wan, yeah, he saw a security tape. Imagine if you saw a security tape of your brother gunning down a kindergarten class.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're going to say that then how's that start off? It's, and so, just prior to them, picking up lightsabers against each other, Anakin's whispering sweet nothings to Padme about how wonderful life's going to be. And so I think that just set me off on the wrong foot, where it's like, I'm not buying his fall to the dark side from the minute that he chopped off Mace Windu's arm. I'm not buying that. So, and actually I can say honestly that from 1977 to 1999, I did not envision what that lightsaber duel would look like.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it was, again, it was like, man, what caused two brothers to stop to want to kill each other? That's what I thought about. And I didn't buy that storyline.
Well, and I'll get us off of it because realistically, I mean, we can spend another hour talking about it. But I'll say, and I'll agree with y'all in this regard, dialogue and setup were the flaws here, but those were the overall flaws of the prequels. Mm-hmm. Those are flaws in episode 1, in episode 2, in episode 3. And this is the problem, that while we love them, we can't get away from. We can't remove the wheat from the chaff in this case. They're ingrained. The bad dialogue, the bad directing of actors saying lines, the bad exposition, and the bad setups. These are all ingrained in the pudding that George Lucas cooked for all these movies. So when it comes to this particular duel, and one I'm about to mention, the fact of the matter is that by this point you can't unring those bells. You can only finish it through. So I'm actually going to mention a different duel from Revenge of the Sith for my first bottom duel, and that's Palpatine versus Mace and the other Jedi Masters.
All right, so I won't even say mine because I'm the same way as you. So go ahead, you just talk because that's my next on my list. So go ahead.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it, number one, the whole speed thing, you can totally tell that Ian McDiarmid had no idea and no interest in swinging a lightsaber around. And what's funny is he even admits it in the interviews. He's saying, "No, I've never done this, and I wasn't really into it. But George wanted me to do it, so I did it."
The other thing about that is like because I just watched it the other day is that the other three Jedi stand there like the bad guys fighting Batman. It's like they all stand there going, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then he guts one of them. "Hey, what'd you do that for?" And then they gut him. It's just like, really? I mean, it was just like, should have just done them in one fell swoop. I would have bought that, but from Sidious. But yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Well, that's kind of my point. It's like particularly when some of these are characters like Kit Fisto that we've later on gone to meet. We had seen a little bit in the micro series, but we got him to know him better in the Clone Wars series. The fact that, and I get it, they're trying to build up the fact that Sidious is the Dark Lord of the Sith. He's far more powerful. They're not expecting him to leap out into that twirly, like everybody complains about the Mary Poppins episode thing in Last Jedi. Look at that twirl that Palpatine does in Revenge of the Sith. That is some straight up Mary Poppins stuff.
The other thing that drives me nuts in that whole duel is Ian McDermott's faces and expressions like bleh, bleh, bleh. It's like, shut up. It's not
like him with the hood up against Yoda. Those and the face, and the makeup done, those expressions work there. Him just doing it like, oh, this is just old me. Yeah, I get what George was going for, but not working here.
That part of it's indefensible. I kind of like the weird twirl, and you can even like sort of do mental gymnastics to say the reason he cut those Jedi down as they stood perfectly still was this is happening in a much faster time frame than you're depicting on film. Like he's cutting them down in milliseconds, and they're just like, what? And so I get it. It's dramatic. It's filmed a certain way, and you're limited by Ian. But yeah, no, it's not good.
Like I said, it's like the guards in Monty Python and the Holy Grail when Lancelot storms the castle. They're like, hey. But like I said, it's just, and like I said, it's overacted. Like I said, the bleh and everything is just, that was, after seeing that, somebody should have said, you know what, we should just get in there with the computer and just Photoshop those other three guys out and just let's make this just between him and Mace. But even then, Sam Jackson was, and again, he's fighting an old dude, but I mean, it was slow, It wasn't the Mace Windu that we saw in episode 2 that, this party's over,
And I kind of get, the idea they wanted to have Sidious with a lightsaber sets up the duel with Yoda, but at the same time, I would have been more interested in that moment. You'd seen him go to steal an anime line, Super Saiyan, to actually use the dark side of the Force at its full capacity and just like start hurling lightning bolts, and, throwing them out windows.
Absolutely.
I would have bought that. I'm like, oh, they didn't expect a face full of lightning coming at them.
And by the way, listeners, if you want to see better Sidious duels, go watch the Clone Wars. Sidious versus Maul and Savage Opress. That is awesome. Yeah. Sidious versus Yoda in the Clone Wars. That is awesome as well. So, all right. Fredo and I think ran down that one enough, but
Dave.
Like on a similar vein of what you were just talking about, I think like where these duels tend to go catastrophically wrong is when they paint themselves into a corner and they're like, I have to solve this problem now. And another example of this is when you had Obi-Wan and Anakin facing off against Dooku.
That's on my
Both,
that's on my
That's
list.
my next one as well. That's my last one. All right, so
Go
let's all
for it.
talk about this one.
um, you know, it's just this fight. Okay, this is the first one, right? I think the second one does a much better job in its defense. The first fight in Attack of the Clones, it's just a series of contrivances to justify how and why Dooku doesn't get mowed down. Uh, you got basically two people who should overwhelm him, but Anakin charges in like an idiot, and I'm like, great, wonderful, okay. He gets cut down by the lightning. So then Obi-Wan comes in, but he gets dispatched in like a minute. Gets overwhelmed immediately. Then Anakin rolls in with two lightsabers, and we get a cool moment where he's like wielding two lightsabers,
And it's
but then he
done
loses
5 seconds later.
Yeah, 5 seconds later, he loses one of his lightsabers, and then somehow by the end of it, he loses an arm, and none of it makes any sense.
And
I
the whole duel, I'm sorry, because I'm with you
Yeah,
on all of this. The whole duel is probably the one that is most obviously choreographed in the entire saga. This is the one that is like, and step and two and twirl and up and down and block and over and under, and it looks like they're counting their steps throughout this whole thing. Now, the only saving grace to this, I will say, is I think this might be the first time that they actually used the glowy lightsabers in filming,
right.
because the lighting is incredible. It looks good, but it is a boring lightsaber battle.
Yeah. What surprises me the most is Christopher Lee is a classically trained duelist. He has done action scenes and duels for movies for 40 some odd
But
years.
he's been doing it
And
for 40 some odd years, and the dude was almost in a wheel, not to be ageist, but I mean,
eh,
and we're also talking about, we're like, man, these lightsabers, scenes suck with old people. I mean, that's what it sounds, that's because honestly, it's like you said, Ian McDermott can only do so much. Christopher Lee can only do so much. Ray Park can do a whole lot more. So,
true.
now I know
But I
they're
guess
stunt
my
people,
point
but
is, yeah, well, I guess my difference is, Christopher Lee had the training, knows how to do it, has done it. He was in the Three Musketeers. He was in so many action movies. So he's cognizant. Yes, is he going to be moving slowly or slower than he is? Fine, but you can work with it. And I love the fact that they even gave Dooku, they gave him a duelist stance. They gave him a lightsaber you can only hold with one hand. The dude's supposed to be a master of the lightsaber, and you don't really get to see that here uh, between him. And I love the fact that when he shoots up the force lightning, Obi-Wan's quick to use the lightsaber to deflect it. So I'm like, okay, there's some intelligence being put into this, but it really doesn't come together as well as it should have.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I agree with Aaron about there's positives here, like
Mm.
like you said, the lighting with the blue and the red reflected on the people's faces. I actually kind of like Anakin's form when he's wielding the two sabers. But we only get to see that for about 5 seconds. Um, there's good pieces, but it just never comes together.
It is not.
now I'm gonna be honest here. This is not really an honorable mention. Um, I dang near put Obi-Wan Vader A New Hope on my bottom three, but I felt obligated not to, because I think I've just been that's been like the eating your Brussels sprouts part of you know Star Wars for me, for 40 some odd years, because I mean it is the first time you saw lightsabers and you're like, that is so cool, but then it's like there are so many oopsies in it, and it's like I said, it's kind of clumsy and clunky. Um,
You know what I compare it to? You remember the very first Star Wars video game, the Atari one, where you just played the Death Star run, and it was on. I mean, I don't even want to say it was even 8 bits. It was maybe like 4 bits. So and you look at that, and then you look at something like Super Star Wars on the Super Nintendo. I'm not even talking about something like Squadrons today. Just that leap from that very first Star Wars game, and then one just a decade and a half later.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're kind of stuck with. Like looking at that duel, you're looking at progenitor A1,
Well,
but you can totally tell that everybody's blown past it now.
and Dave, you talked about mental gymnastics. I mean, people did mental gymnastics over that one when they have the screw up with Alec Guinness holding a stick because the light wasn't
Yeah.
reflecting correctly, and people were like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that just shows that his powers are weakening and I'm like, no, it's called they ran out of time and money. But then they didn't, when they went back with the special editions, they didn't even totally fix it. It's like,
That's the thing that kills me. It's
how
like,
hard is
fix
it just to
that.
take a marker on Photoshop and it's like, fix that, please? You still see a stick. And so, yeah, Fredo, I'm with you on that. I wish they, that scene 30, whatever it is, would,
In 38, yeah.
that made me feel better. I was like, yeah, that could have been. So anyway, but like I said, I had to confess that I almost put that on my list, but it's like, no.
Well, what did you put on your list? There's one more, right?
No, I agree. Mine, I had Mace and Sidious, and I also had Dooku and Anakin Obi-Wan. So you guys both stole mine. So
And then he had Anakin Obi-Wan.
yeah.
Yeah.
So mine,
Okay.
mine were all talked about. I don't necessarily. I will say I find it interesting that none of us put the Geonosis arena on our list. I mean, because that was like lightsaber overload. It was like all the lightsabers, which you could either really, yeah, you could really either really be into or just like, wow, this is a mess.
I know nobody saw me. That's why I did it. But those first moments when all the Jedi show up and they start turning on the lightsabers and striking a pose like it's the Vogue video
Yeah.
from 1989, I'm just like, okay. It's like I almost go like, okay, okay. The guy showed up in the costume. Look away, look away. Like that's the way I look at that. It's like, it was an interesting, but yeah, it's almost too much. The third one that I had on my list, and just to mention it right quick, the Knights of Ren versus Ben from Rise. We had built up the Knights of Ren for 3 movies. And after beating their former boss for 2 minutes, he magics up a lightsaber, does the one cool thing he could do in that moment, which was a Han Solo style bow, and then they just go out like nothing. And I'm like, really? We built you up over 3 movies. Everybody's like looking forward to seeing you. You get the Hush Tones introduction, and then this is what you give us? I mean, come on.
I'm dovetailing off of that. I'm lumping in their confrontation with Palpatine in with that fight.
Mm-hmm.
All of it. It's all a mess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like where we were headed. I like some of the ideas here. Kylo has to dispatch the Knights of Ren because, I guess he helped create them. I think we still don't really know that whole story. But then, like, she, like, transports him the saber, but then he takes care of them in like 2 seconds flat, and nothing really interesting happens there. And then the two of them unite against Sheev, and then nothing happens with that. He gets knocked out. She deflects his lightning, and the end.
And remember, the way to defeat absolute evil is not 1 lightsaber; it's 2 lightsabers.
Yeah.
I will.
We could have had so much more here. What were you going to say, Aaron?
I was going to switch to a different thing, but go ahead, finish up. Yeah, I would.
I was just going to say, make it make sense.
Yeah.
This is my problem with Rise of Skywalker. Basically, like, again, I'm willing to forgive a whole lot with that movie, and then the ending happened, and
So
like,
you know what? Okay, so you know what Rise of Skywalker is like.
Yes.
So I was so story time, kids. I was playing a gig with my Irish band, and there was four of us. Guitar player, I played bodhrán and sang, and then we had a mandolin banjo player and then a flute player. Well, that night we show up to the gig, and our mandolin banjo player, he's like, "Hey guys, I'm not really feeling all that spiffy. I had a colonoscopy today." And so I was like, all right, and then our whistle player shows up and his wife was hit by a car as she was on her walk. And, she was all right and everything, but he was not in this whole, great space. Well, anyway, so we're playing this tune set, which when we would play tune sets, it would be three different, we were playing reels. So it was three reels and, each one is three times. We play each one three times. So we're in the middle of the second tune, and I'm playing my drum, and the mandolin player, as he's playing all these notes, he turns to me. He doesn't drop a note, and he turns to me and goes, "I don't know what the next tune is." And I'm like playing my drum, and I don't know it either, because I just play the drum, but looked at the set list. I was like, it's Father Kelly's. Meanwhile, Mike is still playing all the notes. And he looks up in the air as he's playing this other one. He's like, I don't know how that goes. I was like, we have another time through this tune. It'll come to you. Muscle memory is a great thing. We get to the third tune and Mike just goes. He's just improvising. He has not playing any right note, but he's playing within the chords. So the guitar player has no idea that this conversation's happening, and he's playing the chords. What Mike is playing is fitting, but the flute player, who is not part of this conversation either, is trying to play along with Mike. So he's leaning into his microphone going, and he'd stop and look at Mike, and then he just set down his flute and started playing a shaker. He had no idea what to do. And Mike is just improvising for 2 minutes on this chord progression. That's Rise of Skywalker. It was like, everybody's just like, what are we doing here? I don't know. Let's just, we need a lightsaber duel here. So go, how do you want me to take these guys out? It just seems like they're improvising sorry, this is a really long story, but I agree with you that,
how is the last movie in the Skywalker saga not going to have a memorable or good lightsaber battle?
That's a whole other podcast, Dave, that would require. You're right though. There's a lot of things that should have been planned out. I will say this. I'm going to take us to a different one. I think The Last Jedi could have the best and the worst lightsaber moment in the same movie. The best and the worst lightsaber moment. The worst being Luke Skywalker throwing the lightsaber. I didn't have a problem with him throwing it. I had a problem with how he threw it. Because
over the shoulder.
Over the shoulder, just like a punk kid. I think if he would have had a little bit more disdain on his face and threw it forward onto the ground, I would have bought that. The best one in that is the Porgs pounding away at the power, cell of the lightsaber. And I was just like, that is genius. And everybody's waiting for a skewered Porg, but I just love it how they're stomping on the lightsaber. So like I said, best lightsaber moment, worst lightsaber moment, same movie.
You know what I will even say? Your worst moment ties in with what I think is the best moment in the film, when Rey throws Ben the saber and he catches it in midair and ignites it in that Praetorian guard's head.
Yes.
And it sort of mirrors the motion of Luke throwing the saber over his shoulder, except I'm going to use this to basically decapitate somebody.
Well, I would say, if I was going to say one best individual moment, and it's the one that just popped in my head, it's when R2 launches Luke in Jedi. Because you've been waiting for it. And all of a sudden you just see a little head come on and then just thump, and it goes in the air, Luke does his backflip and lands in his head, and the music just swells, and you're like, okay, let's go. We're here for this.
And that's why that deleted scene needs to stay deleted. With Luke,
Building it.
creating his lightsaber, because it robs you of. Because in that scene, you're like, it's a new lightsaber, and it's in R2's head, and then then it goes flying. It just that's a good moment. So, well, I tell you what, everybody, tell us what your favorite and least favorite moments are on Twitter or on Facebook. And if you disagree with us in our assessments, just disagree nicely. Because I disagreed with Fredo. Fredo disagreed with me, and we were cool about it. But I'm realizing I think I need to go to therapy for episode 3. It's done something to me that I apparently need therapy or alcohol.
Were you medicated when you saw it?
No, Last Jedi I was. No, episode 3. And I don't remember being disappointed watching episode 3 in the moment. It's just it has not worn well on me.
We'll have to get you the good beer ahead of that viewing.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know on like I said, Facebook and Twitter. Otherwise, you can find our podcast where pretty much all podcasts are found. And if you can't find it there, let us know, and we'll try to get it there. But otherwise, just get it where you got it before. I don't know. But tell your friends about our podcast. We had a very nice compliment from Ariana last week about this has helped her through the pandemic, and that was very sweet. So a nice shout out to her. Because that was a nice warm fuzzy. Well, all right. Well, again, everybody stay safe, and please be healthy, and wear a mask, wear 2 masks, get your vaccine, whatever. But so we can all have, make sure we have festivals in the fall, and we have Mardi Gras next year, and we can go home for Christmas and stuff like that. So support your fellow man. And check out the crew of House Floats. I know Kate has been working a lot with that, and people in New Orleans have really stepped up and tried to make, something nice out of something crappy, and they've done a really good job. So check out the crew of House Floats. So I just want to throw that shout out there. But other than that, we will say who dat?
Who dat?
Who dat?
And have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
McConkey.